grieving is different, and it's different for every single person. It's not the same for anyone. And that's what's prompted me to talk about this, right? The loss of a beloved pet in our family that was my sister's dog. And it just made me realize that, grieving is not talked about enough, because it's like, well, it's grieving. What are you going to say? But there's a lot to say to it. Everyone grieves differently, but there's some things to never do to anyone who's grieving. Never, ever put a timeline on it. Never tell someone, okay, it's been a year now, like time to move on. Never tell someone that they have been grieving too long and it's time to move forward. And never tell someone that they haven't grieved enough, that they moved on too quickly. Never, ever tell someone how to grieve, what they should feel, how they should handle it, how they should be. Don't judge them. And there's also another side of it. If you are the one grieving, don't let that turn you into the victim mindset, the victim mentality. Hello. Welcome to my show. Hope you're all having a good day. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with me. I like to keep my episodes short. I personally don't have a super long attention span. Bless my poor husband's heart. He knows that if he's introducing me to something new, whether it's a song, a comedy show, a movie, even a reel, they got about the first 5 to 10 seconds, maybe 15 or 20, but not much. You either got to get me quick or that's it. So today I want to talk about grieving. And, that's a difficult subject. But recently we've, had a loss in our family and a beloved pet. And, it's really, really hard to watch someone you love grieve, because you just want to make it better. And I am naturally a healer, hence the show, right? But no, I am naturally a healer. And so it's really hard for me when I can't make something better for someone, especially when it's unexpected. There's nothing that makes it easier at all. And, this unexpected loss is what prompted this topic today. Because grieving is just hard and it fucking sucks. I don't care if it's a pet, family, partner, child, friend, whatever it is. It's hard. And grieving is also when you lose anything or anyone you love. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've passed away. It can also mean that, it's a divorce, right? The loss of a friend unexpectedly because they showed their true colors. So when I'm talking about grieving, I don't exactly mean it has to be, someone that's passed away. Just anyone that you love, that is special to you, that you lost, whether it was you lost them because, they did something wrong and they betrayed you, they lied to you, they just decided to not talk anymore, or because unfortunately they went up with our Heavenly Father. And, I did a lot of grieving after my divorce. Oh my gosh. And when I would say that to people, they would be like, why would you grieve him? He fucked you over. I'm like, no. I'm not grieving that. I was grieving the fact that I went from having my kids 100% of the time, from the time they were born, to adjusting to 50% of the time. That was what I really grieved the most. I was grieving the loss of what I thought my future would be. I was grieving the what I thought the truth was about that person. I was grieving the fact that I'd been lied to for 14 and a half years. That was what I was grieving. And grieving is different, and it's different for every single person. It's not the same for anyone. And that's what's prompted me to talk about this, right? The loss of a beloved pet in our family that was my sister's dog. And it just made me realize that, grieving is not talked about enough because it's like, well, it's grieving. What are you going to say? But there's a lot to say to it. Everyone grieves differently, but there's some things to never do to anyone who's grieving. Never ever put a timeline on it. Never tell someone, okay, it's been a year now. Like time to move on. Never tell someone that they have been grieving too long and it's time to move forward. And never tell someone that they haven't grieved enough, that they moved on too quickly. Never ever tell someone how to grieve, what they should feel, how they should handle it, how they should be. Don't judge them. And there's also another side of it. If you are the one grieving, don't let that turn you into the victim mindset, the victim mentality. It doesn't mean that, like, in other words, you don't get a free pass. You're grieving, but you can't start acting like a piece of shit or being disrespectful and blame it on that. You understand what I'm saying, right? We're all adults. We get it. But I realized that, I've experienced that in my own life a lot. Whether it was the loss of someone because they went on to heaven, or it was, divorce, or whatever it might be, the loss of a friendship because that person had been had been lying and revealed their true colors, and then that friendship ends, right? And people kind of like, okay, like, you've done it, you've grieved, move on. How dare they put a time limit on your grieving? Don't allow anyone to do that to you ever, and don't ever do that to someone. People grieve at their own pace. When you tell someone how they should grieve, that they should be done grieving, that they didn't grieve enough, you actually prolong their grieving and you actually add to their grieving. So if you love someone, you wouldn't want to do that, right? So there's another aspect of it, and that is for the person that's grieving. This message is for you, for anyone who is currently grieving or has grieved, and for those who we know, unfortunately, we will grieve in the future. Grieving is part of life. Just as I'm telling you the things that shouldn't be done or you shouldn't do to anyone grieving, there's also something else to it. This is something I've learned in watching others grieve, and that is people believe, or some people have the misconception that they need to grieve in such a deep, negative way. Now, let me explain myself, because that can come off wrong. What I mean by that is that people have put such a stigma on grieving, what it should be, how it should be done, that it prohibits people from being any different. In other words, someone might think that if they didn't cry hard enough, if they didn't feel really sad or broken, that something was wrong with them, and that they didn't grieve enough. They didn't love, that loved one enough. They should have grieved more. The thing is that grieving, I don't believe should be negative. It's, well, Janna, what are you saying? My gosh, it's a loss. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying at all that grieving isn't because of a loss. I'm saying it shouldn't be negative, right? Especially when it comes to losing a loved one, whether that's pet or human, to death. When someone you love or something you love passes on to the next, when you grieve that loved one in a negative way, tell me how that benefits you or that person's or animal's soul. Answer that question. It doesn't. You think, because we've been wired that way in our brains, you think you should feel that way. You think it needs to be this negative thing, and it doesn't. It's bittersweet, my friends. You must understand, when a loved one, something precious to us passes on, you got to know and believe with all your heart that person, that pet, they served their purpose here on life. They did what they needed to do, and it was time for them to go. And that time was decided on before they ever came into this world. And it's painful, and nothing can prepare you for it. But allow yourself to grieve and feel the way that you feel. When you make it a negative form of grieving, you actually are adding on immensely to the grieving process. You're making it much harder for that person's soul to move on. You are making it harder for you to move on. It becomes a victim mentality for yourself. And then you end up, you know, self-sabotaging, whether you're overeating or not sleeping enough, don't get out of the house, you stop exercising, you just kind of recluse. I understand why they call, since COVID, instead of a funeral, they say celebration of life. And I get that. I didn't used to because it was so different, but I get that now. It really should be celebrated. It's sad. So please don't mistake anything I'm saying for saying to not be sad. Sadness doesn't have to be negative. It is absolutely sad and heartbreaking when you lose someone or something special. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it doesn't have to be negative. It's sad. Of course it's sad. But if you go down the woe is me and if I would have done this and if I and the what ifs and the guilt trip, that's negative. It's negative to say like this always happens to me. Why? Why? Not now. That's negative. Don't do grieving in a negative way. And I don't think that that's how you want to honor that loved one that's passed. How is that beneficial or helpful to their memory and yours of theirs? It's not. I know this can be a hard topic, but I know so very much about the mindset. This is just a little bit of wisdom that I had to share today. I'm not going to go on and on about it. I just want to give you, my listeners, a different way to think about grieving. It happened when it was supposed to happen. What happened was going to be a part of your life before you came into this world. You need to grieve. But if you do it in a negative way, you're going to be grieving much longer, maybe forever, in such a way that it holds you back. So honor that loved one. Be sad, be heartbroken, but make sure that you're feeling and dealing so you can heal. All right, love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon.